Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Run All Night. This movie tells the story of a mobster and hitman who has one night to figure out where his loyalties lie, with his estranged son whose life is in danger, or his longtime best friend mob boss who wants his son's life to pay for the death of his own son. What will he choose, and how will he solve this problem? Let's find out in Run All Night. Run All Night tells the story of a man named Jimmy Conlon, a former Irish mob enforcer who has now retired and becomes an emotionally unstable alcoholic. Jimmy used to work for a crime lord named Sean Maguire, who is also Jimmy's closest friend and the only person who still cares for Jimmy when everyone else leaves him, including his family. Jimmy has a son named Mike Conlon. Mike is a chauffeur and retired professional boxer who mentors at-risk kids at the local gym. Mike, fed up with his father's actions and his work as a hitman, refuses to call Jimmy his dad or involve him in his daughter's lives. One night, Jimmy is going to meet Danny, Sean's son, to borrow some money. Arriving at Danny's place, Jimmy sees two police officers in Danny's room and taking bribes from him, which Danny and his father often do to smooth out their illegal activities. When Jimmy meets Danny, he seems unhappy with Jimmy's presence, who always borrows money from his father after retiring. Danny refuses to lend him money unless he is willing to do something for him, in which Danny asks Jimmy to be Santa Claus at his house's Christmas celebration. Because he really needs money, Jimmy is forced to comply with Danny's request. After that, Danny meets his father, Sean, with the Albanian gangsters to discuss heroin sales, where Sean flatly refuses the gangsters' offer to allow the sale of Albanian heroin in Sean's territory. Disappointed by Sean's refusal, the Albanian gangsters demand Danny to return the money they paid Danny to arrange a meeting and negotiate with Sean. Since the amount of money is not small, they gave Danny until tomorrow and threatened to kill him if Danny couldn't return their money. But Danny tells them that he will convince his father to accept the gangsters' offer. When the Albanian gangsters have left, Danny returns to his father and gets into a heated argument, because Sean is adamant that he will not accept the gangsters' offer. The scene then switches and shows Mike practicing boxing in a boxing gym, accompanied by one of his students, a young man nicknamed Legs, who is recording Mike's training. After training, Mike gets a job to take two clients to a place, where the client is the Albanian gangster who previously had a meeting with Danny at Sean's house. The Albanian gangsters ask Mike to take them to Danny's place. Turns out, they had changed their mind and were going to collect the money tonight from Danny. Arriving at Danny's place, the Albanian gangsters are enraged when the man taunts them by giving them a pile of play money, before a gunfight breaks out and Danny manages to kill one of them. Seeing his comrade dead, the man tried to run out of the house, but Danny chases after him and shoots the man outside the house, killing him. The incident was witnessed by Mike, who was waiting in his car, and also Legs, who accidentally recorded the shooting with his cell phone camera. Danny, who noticed Mike's presence, then came to the man while pointing a gun at him, while Legs managed to hide before Danny saw him. Danny takes Mike to his house and intends to kill him there, but Mike immediately puts up a fight and finally manages to escape. Danny and his henchmen then chase after Mike, but he manages to escape by jumping over the fence. However, Danny manages to steal Mike's wallet and get his identity and home address. When he got home, Mike immediately called his wife, who is at his sister-in-law's house. Mike asked his wife to stay there and don't go home for a while for the safety of all of them. Knowing that Mike is in trouble with Danny, Jimmy goes to his son's house, where he asks Mike on Sean's orders not to report the murder Danny committed last night to the police. Mike has not allowed his father into his house because he still hates his father. But Jimmy forces his way into Mike's house and tries to convince his son to obey Sean's orders for the safety of both of them and Mike's family, because Jimmy doesn't want them all killed. However, Mike still refuses and will report Danny to the police. When Jimmy is about to go home, he sees Danny's car parked not far away, so Jimmy rushes back to Mike's house and finds that Danny had pointed a gun at Mike, about to kill his son. Without thinking, Jimmy immediately shot Danny, killing him. Jimmy then calls Sean to tell him about Danny's death, where Jimmy honestly says that he had to kill Danny because Danny was about to kill his son. Hearing this, Sean got furious and demanded that life be paid for life, in which he vowed to kill Mike. On the other hand, a panicked Mike then grabbed the phone to call the police, but Jimmy prevented it because it would only make the situation worse. Mike, who is annoyed at his father's reckless action that killed someone, then kicked Jimmy out of his house. Mike then called the police and reported that his father had just killed a man at his house. The report turned out to have been intercepted by Sean, who then sent his henchmen to visit Mike's residence. Sean sends two corrupt cops to catch Mike and kill him. The two corrupt cops then corner Mike and arrest him on murder charges. On the other hand, Jimmy, watching the situation outside Mike's house, sees his son being led away by two corrupt cops whom he met while visiting Danny's office. Jimmy then followed the policeman who brought Mike and crashed his car in the middle of the highway, before finally the police car lost control and crashed. Jimmy rushed to save Mike, who is handcuffed in the back seat, and shoots one of the corrupt policemen, killing him, and immediately taking Mike away from there. On the other hand, Sean also sends his henchmen, led by a man named Frank, to kill Mike. Frank and his men track down Jimmy and Mike's whereabouts after the collision, and learn that they went to the station. However, Jimmy managed to finish them all off. Sean then orders his henchmen to clean up the mess at Danny's house using Mike as a scapegoat. Sean orders his men to put the bodies of the Albanian gangsters into Mike's car, so that Mike becomes the prime suspect in the murder and mobilizes all his men to find Jimmy and Mike all over the country. Elsewhere, Mike's wife, Gabrielle, watches a live television broadcast about Mike and Jimmy being suspects in a murder case and now wanted by the police. Jimmy then asks Mike to come back with his family and stay hidden until he contacts him. Jimmy then contacts Detective Harding, a police officer who has not been able to prove Jimmy's role in the murder of the Albanian gangsters. Harding tells Jimmy that eyewitnesses claim that Mike was the shooter and not Danny. Jimmy then makes a deal with Harding, in which he will prove Mike's innocence and turn himself in with a list of all the people he had killed in his mafia career. After that, Jimmy goes to Sean to apologize and beg that Mike not to be involved in their problem. But Sean refuses because Jimmy has killed his son, so Sean has the right to demand justice. Jimmy tells Sean that Danny is going to kill Mike and threatens to talk to the police about Sean's past crimes. Sean, who is not afraid of Jimmy's threats, then says that the police don't care about the information Jimmy has about him. Sean then threatens Jimmy to kill Mike and his family in revenge, then lets Jimmy die. Hearing the threat, Jimmy then goes to Mike and his family, then sends Mike's family to a secluded cabin for their safety, while Jimmy and Mike rush to Leg's apartment to take video footage of the Albanian gangster shooting carried out by Danny, to prove that he is not the murderer as reported by the media. Elsewhere, after seeing his son's body, Sean orders a professional assassin named Andrew Price to kill Jimmy and Mike and also their families. When Jimmy and Mike visit Leg's apartment building, apparently one of the apartment residents sees them and knows that they are fugitives, so the woman immediately reported their whereabouts to the police. Not long after, the police arrived to evacuate the apartment's occupants to a safe place. Price, who is also there, then turned off the electricity in the entire building. Jimmy and Mike then take the opportunity to mingle with the apartment residents being evacuated. Even so, Price can find out where Jimmy and Mike are in the dark. Long story short, Jimmy and Mike managed to escape from the police and rushed away. Jimmy also manages to immobilize Price, though he is badly injured by Price's fatal shot, which hits him in hand. After that, Jimmy and Mike went to Jimmy's brother's house named Eddie. An angry Eddie then tells Mike that Jimmy is only loyal to Sean, and reveals that Jimmy had killed his own cousin to prevent the man from testifying against Sean and would do the same to Mike. Hearing this, Mike felt disgusted and disappointed in his father, and did not want to trust his father anymore, and returned to his family. Looking for a way to end the blood feud, Jimmy then calls Sean and again asks him to stop targeting Mike and his family, and threatens to kill Sean if he persists in killing his son. However, Sean ignored Jimmy's threat and immediately hung up. Jimmy is already in front of Sean's hideout and ready to kill him.
Tell everyone to get ready. Jimmy's coming.
Jimmy manages to slaughter Sean's henchmen and eventually kills Sean, ending their feud. At the same time, Legs goes to the police station and finds Detective Harding handing over the video of Danny's murder of the Albanian gangster, and Harding checks the ballistics on Danny's gun to confirm the video. Meanwhile, Mike arrives at a secluded cabin to meet his family, then calls Detective Harding to tell him his current location, because Mike intends to turn himself in. Not long after, Jimmy comes to see Mike and his family and says that Sean is dead and everything is over, so Mike and his family can finally live in peace. Mike seems relieved to hear all that, and finally introduces Jimmy to his granddaughters and meets them for the first time. But then, Price, who is apparently still alive, suddenly appears and attacks the cabin, fatally shoots Jimmy, then hunts down Mike and his family. Mike is briefly cornered by Price, but Jimmy manages to kill Price just before he shoots Mike. The police finally arrive at the scene, where Detective Harding informs him that he has received video footage of the Albanian gangster murders, proving that Mike is not the culprit, thus acquitting Mike of all charges. Detective Harding said this to Mike and Jimmy, just before Jimmy finally breathed his last while holding his list of past victims for Harding as promised. Although their relationship was not close, Mike seemed so sad and devastated when his father died, because at the end of his life, his father sacrificed everything to save himself and his family. In the epilogue, Mike returns to work as a boxing coach and driver, and lives a happy life with his wife and 2 daughters. Mike looked sad at the photo of himself with his father, before leaving for work. Through this film, we are shown about the love of a father, who is willing to do anything and sacrifice everything to protect his family.